Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to Dark Days. Quick little apology, I guess you can call it. Sorry for taking so long. So, full disclosure, I work at a grocery store, and as we all know, it's constantly covered in the media to a nauseating degree. But with the coronavirus bullshit going on right now, I have been absolutely swamped at work, and the little bit of free time I have had has been spent sleeping. So I've had very little time, but I definitely wanted to find some sort of time to get this review in and also announce my next couple of reviews. If you follow me on Instagram, you should already know what that is, but I also have a little surprise as well. But anyways, so today we're obviously reviewing Hellraiser from 1987. It's written and directed by the master, Clive Barker, starring Andrew Robinson, Higgins, Ashley Lawrence, and Sean Chapman. Quick little spoiler-free section. Basically, if I would recommend this or not, absolutely. This movie's incredible. It's it's just a classic. I mean, there's no real other way to express that. I know a lot of my reviews thus far have been very positive, and this one will be no different. And don't you worry, we will get to some negatives. Trust me. But but yeah, no, this movie's incredible. Very compelling story. I mean, at this time, slashers were still like the in thing as far as as far as horror movies were concerned, and I'm not saying this isn't a total this doesn't completely stray away from the slasher genre, but it definitely, for the time, it is very unique among its peers to a certain degree. Obviously, it's like I said, it doesn't completely stray away from that slasher trope, but the way it is executed is incredible. For instance, there's no real final girl. I guess you can call Kristy, the daughter character in this, the final girl, but she really isn't in it for a whole lot. I mean, she's in it, and obviously she has a very big role at the in the final act, but the story doesn't totally follow her. It's not about her necessarily, and we'll obviously get into that in the spoiler part of the review. But obviously, big recommendation for this. Gory as hell. Special effects are amazing. The kills are brutal and awesome, and the performances for the most part down the line are just very compelling. It's not perfect, as I'll get into. There's a couple little things that I have a problem with, but it doesn't affect anything for me. And yeah, so let's just get into the spoiler section. So right from the beginning, you are just thrust into this very intense, gory, disturbing world. When Frank basically buys the puzzle box off a gentleman. I don't know what country they're in off the top of my head, and I don't want to come off as an ass and just try and pretend to know what it is. So, but yeah, so he buys it off some dude in a foreign country, brings it back to his house, and basically performs a ritual which involves him unlocking the puzzle box and getting fucking murdered to death. It's pretty brutal. You don't see a whole lot, but what you do see, you see a lot of the aftermath. It's fucking disgusting looking. Which I'll just acknowledge it now. The practical effects in this movie again are insane. A lot of people talk about the Thing. A lot of people talk about the some of the Nightmare movies, and let me just think of some other ones. Obviously, like George Romero's Dawn of the Dead series, or well, the Dead series, I should say. Um, Obviously, those get a very big, uh, get very big praise for their practical effects. I don't hear a lot about this one though, and that's just my circle of horror people. But yeah, the practical gore in this and effects in general and imagery and all that is fucking incredible. Anyway, so yeah, Frank gets murdered to death, ripped apart, um, and it's not the last we see of him, as we will go into later. So basically, the story of this movie uh, really revolves around Julia, the mother, who personally, beyond like Pinhead, obviously the Cenobites are like the most legendary aspect of this film series. But for me, Julia is the most compelling character in this film. I mean, she's just extremely uh, for a 80s horror film, very in depth character, incredibly so actually. Uh, yeah, I really liked Julia's arc in this, and it does not go her way. Let's just say. But so basically, the story of this is Julia is moving into this new house with her husband that they have bought off his brother Frank, and the husband's name is Larry, by the way, and also his Larry's daughter Kristy is in the picture as well, who is the, as I said before, the final girl. Not really, but at least in my opinion. But yeah, so basically, while moving into this house, Larry, it's the same house that Frank got killed in by the Cenobites. I think he like drags his forearm across a nail that's just kind of hanging out from the from the door, from the door frame of the wall or something. Again, another gnarly, fucking gross effect. It's very minor, but just seeing it like go through is like, but yeah. So, and when his blood hits the floor, it basically awakens. Ooh, no, awakens Frank's corpse, and from there, it is revealed that Julia. I'm going a little bit out of order here. Some stuff is revealed before other things, but anyways, so it is revealed in the movie that Julia at one point was very much so in love with Frank, um, and it's not like a romantic, uh, it's not like a romantic, sweet, lovey-dovey love. Like it's like they're, let's just be honest, they're fucking like she has a extreme lust for this man, which ends up playing to her downfall. But when she discovers that Frank is alive or close to being alive, um, she basically is willing to do whatever it takes to bring him back so they can run away together. And Frank is, needless to say, not fully himself. He's very gross looking. I think the very first time we see him post uh, resurrection is he's just this stringy, mangled fucking corpse, and it's just disgusting. Again, a lot of the practical effects for him are a big reason why this movie shines in that department. But anyways, so she's basically willing to do whatever it takes to fully bring him back, and Frank basically says, "I need blood, Julia." Horrible impression of him, but yeah, he needs the blood of men to basically revitalize himself, and Julia is a very attractive woman, so she basically lures some horn dogs in and kills them, and Frank consumes them essentially, and the after effects of that on these guys are also very fucking brutal. That just looks disgusting. The aftermath, you don't really see a whole lot of him actually consuming them. You get a little bit of it, but the after effect is like, whew. And so she lures, I believe, 4 guys in total, and just and she's the one who kills him. Frank does not kill him. She she proves herself to be quite an evil person, to be honest, which is weird because I would consider her to be the lead of this movie. But yeah, so she goes all out and kills these guys, and Kristy eventually catches on and basically lures. Yeah, like I said, I'm skipping. I'm not gonna give a full plot synopsis. It's basically the cliff notes. She discovers the mangled corpse that was formerly her uncle. There's also a little hint of past. It's at least in it's at least hinted at that at some point Frank may have sexually assaulted Kristy at some point in her life, because like as soon as she sees him, first of all she immediately knows who it is, which is kind of weird considering looks nothing like Frank. Just to fun fact, it's not even the same actor, but she immediately knows who it is, and he says something to the vein of like uh come to daddy or something like that. I can't remember, and it's a great line. It's a shame I can't remember it. But but yeah, he's very pervy with her, and just is very, yeah, uh, oof, which makes you hate him even more. But so yeah, she essentially steals the puzzle box from Frank, unleashes the Cenobites, and actually goes through a portal, and that leads to some really fun stuff that I won't spoil. Even though this is a spoiler-free section, whatever, leave me alone. Um, and yeah, it's it gets cool. But anyways, it basically leads to her telling the Cenobites what's going on and that Frank escaped them, and the female Cenobites like, well, no one escapes us, and not Julia, Kristy's like, well, someone fucking did. And yeah, and they eventually find Frank, and the rest is history. And we'll kind of get into that final little part here at the end. But just a fantastic story. Just a really compelling, cool, unique take on horror. And like I said, it's just it's very poetic. And the Cenobites basically represent, albeit a very brutal form of justice, but justice nonetheless. And yeah, so very cool stuff. Essentially, I'll just get to it. What ends up happening is Frank straight up kills and skins Larry, and wears his face. I guess would be. I'm not sure if it's that or he possesses him. It's not fully alluded to, because it is for basically, I'll call it a Leatherface job. Very well done on his part. It's the same actor who plays Larry essentially. But but yeah. So I'm gonna go with possession probably, but it's also kind of hinted at that he may have just skinned him and is wearing his face. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Let's talk about it in the comments. Anyways, so yeah, they end up finding him, and putting all the hooks in him again. It's already brutal once when you see it kind of hinted at, but imagine just having to go through that again, and no telling what they were doing to him while he was in hell. Um, but anyways, they get that scene gets my kill of the movie. They put all the hooks in him, and you just see his face all fucking like stretched out and mangled, and all these hooks in him, and he just goes, Jesus wept, and then he just fucking great. I love it. It's brutal. You don't get a whole lot of it, but what you do get is fucking nasty, and I'm a sicko, so I love it. But yeah, that's kill of the movie. I'd say the only real, I guess, problem I have with this film would be Kristy's boyfriend. He's there, and it doesn't really get a whole lot of plot development. Our character development, I should say. I really feel like you could have left him out and would have been totally fine. He just seemed kind of useless. I do plan on watching Hellraiser 2 and reviewing that on here, so who knows, maybe he gets a little development. It's been a very long time since I've seen these movies. I watched these when I was 10, maybe, which I know what you're thinking. What the fuck were you doing watching this when you were 10? Yeah, I don't know either. But thank God that I was able to watch these because it turned me into the horror nut that I am, among other films. But yeah, didn't really feel like he needed to be there. Like I said, some of the side characters are a little like hokey, but all in all, this film is just incredible. Um, and yeah, that basically covers it. Uh, quick little 15-minute review. I'm looking at my time code right here. And, but yeah, if you haven't seen this, absolutely watch it. Oh, one last thing I wanted to touch on before we get into some exciting announcements, I guess. Um, Obviously, like I said before, the Cenobites are like the legendary part of this franchise. But in this first, especially Pinhead, obviously. Um, but man, and Pinhead's great in this, by the way. He's out. I mean, he's one of my top horror villains easily. I love Pinhead. Not really in this film too much. This film really does rely on Julia, Frank, Larry, and Kristy and their story, and you just kind of you get this overwhelming sense of dread about the Cenobites. They're in it, you see them throughout the movie, but it's very sporadic. And I love how they use that because when you do full on get them in the final act of this movie, it's well worth the wait. And like I said before, leads to my kill of the film. Uh, Jesus wept. What a fucked up thing to say before you die. Again. But anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling. Obviously, it's easy for me to do. I love this movie. Check it out for sure. Hellraiser, mwah, love ya. Anyways, on to some other stuff. So it was announced. I announced on Friday the 13th that I would be reviewing the. Whoopsies, camera cut off. Anyways, smooth transition. But as I was saying. It was announced on Friday the 13th that I was going to be reviewing the Friday the 13th franchise. And I will be doing this. Fun fact, as far as a horror series is concerned, this is probably my favorite. It's the most consistent. But anyways, we will get to that when we do. But anyways, I wanted to throw a little surprise at you. I announced on Friday the 13th that I will be reviewing those movies, but it's not going to be my next series of reviews. That will belong to something that I call the... and I thought of this idea at work. I figured it'd be fitting. We're all kind of spooked about the coronavirus right now, and let's talk about zombies. So I picked out 4 of my favorite zombie films ever, and we're gonna be just reviewing them. And yeah, it's gonna be a blast. This isn't a series review. I wouldn't call this a series review because it's not just. It's 4 separate films and 4 different series. And we will be covering all of them on this channel back to back, and I call it the coronavirus special. I might have a more catchy name as time goes on, but that's what it's called for right now. So we're going to be reviewing Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, 28 Days Later, and not probably, the newest film out of all of the 4 of these, Train to Busan, which I haven't even unwrapped yet. But yeah, I'm extremely excited to cover all these 4 very different zombie films, and let's get in the spirit of being quarantined together. Alright. But anyways, thank you for coming by, and have a good rest of your day or night or whatever time you're watching this. Alright. Peace, guys.